Hello and welcome to BizPlay Games! With the Switch 2 reveal around the corner, I want to do a video going over my hopes for Nintendo's next generation console. I also want to talk about some of the most recent leaks that are all over the place online. So let's jump in. The Switch 2 has been all over the internet for a long time now. There's been so-called leaks of what the system, or even the system's box, is going to look like, speculation over patents that Nintendo has issued, and dissection of every statement Nintendo makes that could even slightly suggest something about the new console. When I was younger, one of my favorite things to do was look at any new leaks or new information on an upcoming Nintendo system, or any system for that matter. The highlight of this time in my life was before the Nintendo Wii came out, when it was codenamed the Nintendo Revolution. Still an awesome name. This video that I'm showing a little bit of here still gives me goosebumps. It was really the pinnacle of the hype in that time of my life where everything was just exciting. It was a great time in gaming. As I get older, I find for me to even get close to the level of enjoyment for a game release or console launch, to compare to how I felt when I was younger, I need to hold myself back from looking at too much pre-release content so that it can be as fresh as possible for when I experience it. So for this video, I don't want to focus too much on the leaks and rumors that are kind of currently circulating. I want to mostly go over what I personally want for Nintendo's next console. I'll be honest, when Nintendo released that first trailer for the Nintendo Switch back in October of 2016, I felt a little indifferent about it. I thought the idea of having a hybrid console sounded cool, but at the time I was really hoping Nintendo would release a relatively powerful system. Fast forward to 2024, with me playing my Switch a lot more than my Xbox or PS5, I realized that horsepower means a lot less to me than I thought it did. This leaves me in an interesting spot as far as what I think I want the Switch 2 to be like. I enjoyed the hybrid nature of the Switch a lot more than I thought I would, and I'm realizing more and more that I appreciate the convenience and gameplay a lot more than the visual fidelity. The last couple years, I've been pretty happy with my Switch, and for a while, I would have been happy with Nintendo just keeping the hybrid concept and improving the power and making it backwards compatible. I feel like for most people, that's the bare minimum, and that very well could be what we're going to get. I still want those things, but I also want something else. As far as what that something is, I had to really think about it. In my 2024 Nintendo prediction video, I mentioned the idea of a dual-screen Switch that can stream video to the dock and, because of that, be on the TV so that it can use the dual-screen features in handheld mode and in TV mode. I feel like this would take the best parts from the DS, Wii U, and Switch and put it into one package. The way they would do two screens could be tricky. I think an overlapping screen concept would be cool, where the top screen kind of slides up, with the better display screen being on top and the touchscreen being on the bottom, similar to the DS or 3DS. If the Switch 2 does have two screens, it would open up the possibilities of adding the Nintendo DS and 3DS to the Nintendo Switch Online, which would expand the library of games available with a membership by a lot. Also, with the DS being one of Nintendo's first portable, online-capable systems, it would be cool if they had matchmaking for games like Mario Kart DS. But I kinda doubt this would happen, and I don't know how much work it would take. I really don't see Nintendo doing this, but it would be pretty cool. While on the NSO subject, I really hope Nintendo launches the new Switch with a GameCube NSO app. I think it would definitely boost the excitement for the release, and it would give people something to play with the new system. I mean, that's not to even mention the Bluetooth Classic Wavebird-like GameCube controller that everybody would go crazy about. I mean, overall, I just think it would be a good idea to launch it the same time as the Switch 2. Unfortunately, with that, I could see Nintendo launching the GameCube NSO app as a Switch 2 exclusive, similarly to what they did with the new 3DS and the Super Nintendo for the Virtual Console. I hope it doesn't happen, but Nintendo's shown us before they're willing to do that. Let's hope that's not the case. When it comes to backwards compatibility, I've heard mixed things. It obviously seems like a must, especially if you don't do it, you're probably gonna be on the wrong side of millions of people who you're trying to get to buy your next console. I think especially with the Switch's long life cycle, it would be pretty unfortunate not to be able to use the so many accessories that have come out for the Switch and play so many games that we've collected for the last 6 to 7 years. This is especially the case if Nintendo stays with the hybrid console idea. If the Switch 2 has backwards compatibility, I hope that it will enhance Switch 1 games being played on it. Hopefully by the means of resolution, but more importantly for me, frame rate. I have a lot of Switch games that I haven't got back to finishing, and it's almost tempting to wait and see what the Switch 2 will bring, so I can experience some of those games in the best way possible. And if the Switch 2 has a second screen, it would be really cool to see updates to Switch 1 games that could utilize that second screen. This is a good example of why I feel like the Switch 2 needs to be called the Switch 2. If they plan on staying with the hybrid console idea, I think if they call it anything else like the Super Switch or Switch X, it could confuse consumers just like the Wii U did. Calling it Switch 2 might not be very Nintendo, but I think they almost have to do it, especially if they're going to call this their next generation system. The Switch user interface is an interesting topic. When the Switch originally came out, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I was disappointed with how bare bones the Switch UI was. After all these years, it still looks pretty much the same. I've grown to appreciate it a little bit. Maybe I still don't love it, but I appreciate how the simplicity really gets you to focus on the one thing, and that's the games. In the age of smartphones and so many UIs and operating systems that give you so many entertainment options, it makes it hard to appreciate any given option. I've had this feeling with the Xbox UI ever since the Xbox One, and I feel like the PS5 is better, but not quite there. I feel like it's somewhere in the middle. With that being said, I don't mind if they keep the UI simple for the Switch 2, but I really don't see why they can't add folders to the home screen, or add themes. Themes help people personalize their system, which I feel like would make them more attached to it. I don't know why Nintendo wouldn't want that. Maybe it was to keep so much RAM available to get you into the game faster, and without any improvement to the hardware since launch, I guess the lack of these additions would make sense. Maybe at a certain point, when Nintendo was planning the next Switch, they decided to hold some of these features in their pocket so they could have more to differentiate the Switch 2 from the Switch 1. In any case, I really hope we at least get a semi-revamped UI that has themes and folders. If we get themes and folders, I'll be happy. I also hope that they make one polished NSO app for the next Switch, which would include all the NSO Classic consoles and everything the current NSO app has, like missions and icon creation. Obviously, I hope they add more to it than that, but for me, as of now, my main issues with it is how much it chugs and how everything's separated in like 20 different apps. Just put it in one place, make it run smooth, and we'll be happy. Now, as for the Joy-Cons for the Switch 2, I hope they make a myriad of improvements on those. Let's get the obvious one out of the way first. Joy-Con Drift. Since launch, I had to return 4 Joy-Cons between me and my wife, and that can really hinder being able to play multiplayer games together for weeks at a time. I also hope they make their new Joy-Cons a little bit bigger and more comfortable, especially if they still intend for you to use them sideways as their own controller. Don't get me wrong, the current Joy-Cons are serviceable, but for many people with bigger hands, they just don't cut it. I hope they add analog triggers and make the analog sticks a little bit longer. I also wouldn't mind if they got rid of the infrared sensor and some of the other unnecessary features to redirect costs elsewhere. The next Joy-Cons really need to have a revamped face button setup. The current Joy-Cons have you use the 4 small face buttons as the D-pad when you use them sideways. I really hope they change this. 4 small face buttons don't make the greatest D-pad, so hopefully they do something different where they do a better job of mixing a D-pad and a 4 face button setup, almost something like the PlayStation or Sony does with their controllers, like the PS5 controller, where It looks like a D-pad, but they're kind of separated. I feel like that would be a good in-between. It's not perfect, but it would suit the needs of the Joy-Con. When thinking about the screen or screens of the Switch 2, it would honestly be hard to come back from the OLED screen. I love my Switch OLED, and if the new Switch isn't OLED, I would honestly consider not trading in my current Switch. I could see Nintendo not doing OLED and then a couple years from now coming out with the Switch 2 OLED, but we'll have to see and hope that doesn't happen. As long as the screen is at least as big as the OLED screen and it looks good, I'll be happy enough. Before I end the video, I want to give my thoughts on the most recent leaks for the Switch 2. I won't talk about the specs because they're pretty much in line with previous leaks. What I want to talk about is the Joy-Con photo where we can kind of see what looks like a cartridge slot on the one. And, I mean, if this is real, and that's a big if, but I think it would be cool if that's some kind of memory slot where if you have an SD card or memory card in it and then you link up to someone else's Switch, you would have your save data. I know this is a big stretch, but I think that would be pretty cool, so you wouldn't have to go through the process of linking your account and then getting your cloud data. Kind of if you're going to a friend's house or somewhere else to play your Switch, you kind of have your data with you. It's something I don't see Nintendo doing, but if that's real and that is what it is, then I think it would be really cool. The questions keep growing for the Switch 2, and hopefully they're answered soon. Hopefully Nintendo has learned from their past successes and failures to make the Switch 2 a great system. Let me know in the comments what you want for the Switch 2 and what features you saw in this video that you think might be a possibility or that you don't think or think might happen. Anyway guys, appreciate you watching the video. If you're new here, please consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!